Well, hello. Thanks for joining me once again for another of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. I appreciate you guys joining me week after week, paying attention to this rambling session of what's new in the world of music in the store this week. We're on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo 2023. So if you're on the 4th, may the 4th be with you. And on the 5th, don't drink too much. And, well, and happy birthday, Brian. A lot of people are enjoying their record store day record haul right now. Hope you guys got what you were looking for. And if not, well, I hope you're discovering some new music that maybe you picked up. There was a lot of great stuff and a lot of stuff that, had been very little heard before or to that effect. So, hope you're enjoying it. Thanks again. So let's get to this week's new releases. There's quite a few. They're sort of like of varying level of popularity, and some weeks, especially around Record Store Day, they don't put out like a lot of like super powered, high big name releases. I mean, we did have Metallica a couple weeks before Record Store Day. Last week we had the new National album that you see there. Great. That features Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers and Sufjan Stevens, and it's kind of a mellow sort of record. I do like it. It's very catchy. But anyway, so those things are out. Knew Everything But the Girl after 24 years. If you like your disco pop, Jessie Ware's new album is great. So I'll give those sort of recommends, props there. But let me get to what's here this week. So I'm going to start with because there are probably more reissues this week to show. It's sort of a mix, but anyway, the big first reissue I think is De La Soul, Balloon Mind State. De La Soul continues with their reissue campaign. It's sad that Trugoy is no longer with us. Died just before these started coming out again. But these albums had been sort of in limbo for like 20 years because of sampling issues and the label having sort of issues with the rights to their music and all. But it's cool. We did get 3 Feet High and Rising and De La Soul is Dead already. We still have 3 Feet High, or De La Soul is Dead in the store. 3 Feet High, we just got a few more copies back in finally, and then we get the third one. So even though they're all on streaming now, apparently we're getting like one a month, according to physical releases. All right. Another sort of big reissue that a lot of people have been waiting for a while. Type O Negative, Dead Again. Nice Rasputin photo here, but yeah, I mean it. This was supposed to come out, I believe, like a year ago on Run Out Groove, or at least it was sort of like that. And then Nuclear Blast must have said, no, that's ours, and so they ended up putting it out instead. It's a black vinyl edition, but for those of you who've been waiting for this on vinyl, now's your chance. And I don't know. I have a few. I don't know how long they'll last. So, and I don't know how many are still back at the warehouse. Couple of Blue Note Tone Poet reissues this week. We get Freddie Hubbard's Blue Spirits, and this features some guest spots from Joe Henderson, Clifford Jarvis on drums, Harold Mayburn Jr. on piano, Big Black on conga. So it's kind of sounds like it's maybe more of a groovy record. I haven't heard this one. Also mentions Hank Mobley on tenor sax, McCoy Tyner on piano on three of the tracks, sorry. So it's kind of a split group, Pete LaRocca on drums. So anyway, yeah, this looks great. Track list there. If you can see all that. Soul Surge, Blue Spirits, Outer Forces, Kunga Black, and Jodo. So, groovy, man. And then the other one, usually they come in twos. Gil Evans Orchestra. These are all, Kevin Gray mastering jobs, Coherent Audio. Joe Harley's in charge of this, supervising the reissues, and of course Don Was is now president of Blue Note. There's the back of the Gil Evans. I can't wait to hear this one. This has Johnny Coles on it, who just had another reissue of his own come out. Also, Elvin Jones plays drums on this. Steve Lacy on soprano sax. Yeah, it's quite a group. Anyway, yeah, Gil Evans Orchestra. The last Gil Evans stuff that came out was really quite popular, so don't let the word orchestra necessarily fool you. All right, I suppose I gotta show this. The magnum opus of the week, for sure, is the new Smashing Pumpkins record, Adam. I think this has been streaming for a little while now, but it's finally out on vinyl, and you can see how thick it is. This is like, I believe, a 4-record set. Yeah, pretty thick, limited edition, independent record store exclusive. Includes 3 unique screen printed inserts. Adam, a rock opera in 3 acts. People say, I mean, I have not heard it. People say it's as expansive as Melancholy. Not necessarily that kind of music. It has the rock, but then sort of the synth also that Billy's been sort of dabbling with. And it's long. So be prepared. I mean, the guy can't seem to stop himself, right? So anyway, he wants to be Prince of alternative rock. Ed Sheeran, his new record, Subtract. This is 14 tracks, including Eyes Closed. This is a yellow vinyl edition. I think there's supposed to be an indie version of this, but haven't seen it yet show up at the warehouse. But anyway, Ed's been in the news a lot this week for the sampling issue over Let's Get It On being like one of his songs. And I don't know. I mean, I listened to some of the clips that they're playing on TV. First of all, the Marvin Gaye is in a different key. And second of all, I feel like, yes, there are certain rhythmic elements that are the same, I think, but it's such a common chord progression. And if you're going to start holding people accountable to chord progressions, then let's go back and see how many songs sound like other songs, really. It's one thing when we are kind of like holding artists accountable for sampling technology or use of samples. And then it's another when you start holding them accountable for chord progressions, and because the melodic element is certainly different. But, it's a slippery slope, I think. Once you start doing that, you're going to have people saying, well, I don't want to become a musician because I don't want to have to face possible legal action at some point for coming up with something that's too similar to something else. So that's my 2 cents. It's not necessarily everybody's take on it, but speaking as a musician, that's sort of my feeling about it. I'm sure I've written songs at some point that used chord progressions and elements that sounded like other people's, and many times it was because I was inspired by their music in some way. So, that old saying about, a flattery, being a sort of similar, like, paying homage to that as a sense of flattery. So, but then there's out and out stealing, right? So, I mean, which is why P. Diddy is still paying for Every Breath You Take for Sting. Anyway, for the Missing You Biggie song. Great release this week, I think. Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, the awesome mix. Haven't seen it yet. They always have great soundtracks. Here's a little sampling of the track listing, if you can see that off of the glare there. So it starts with an acoustic version of Radiohead's Creep. I think it's got Rainbows, Since You've Been Gone, Space Hog in the Meantime. So going a little deep on some of those. Then you get Earth, Wind and Fire, Flaming Lips, Faith No More, Alice Cooper's I'm Always Chasing Rainbows, San Francisco by the Mowgli's. Then you get tracks by X. You get This Is the Day by the No Sleep Till Brooklyn, BC Boys, Florence and the Machine Dog Days, Badlands by Bruce Springsteen, I Will Dare by the Replacements, and Come and Get Your Love by Redbone. I mean, they always have a really good selection of songs, and even ones that don't necessarily, you think like there's no way that this is going to work together, and they still end up being kind of like a fun sort of travelogue through. It's like a mixtape, someone's mixtape, obviously, uh, which is sort of like built into the whole plot of the film in any way, but you guys get it, you know it's fun anyway. Onward. Duran Jones, uh, band called, and the album's called Wait Till I Get Over. That's quite a Superfly suit he's got on there. Um, yeah, so this is sort of a funk soul band. Um, there's picture on the back and track listing. This is the limited edition Blue Jay vinyl. Includes a 20-page booklet and a digital download. One band that I really, I like them, and I really liked their last record, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the one that breaks them into the mainstream, and it didn't really do it. But they keep, putting out good, interesting records. Are the Lemon Twigs. This is their album, Everything Harmony. They're a couple of brothers from, I guess, New York. Sort of glam rock. The last record had a lot of like that kind of Jim Steinman Meatloaf influence, I felt, mixing with Mott the Hoople and David Bowie. So this is a limited 3,000 copies on clear vinyl. And I don't know, I'm kind of anxious to hear what they do on this one, but Iggy Pop has a little blurb up here where he's saying they have that sort of pop rock sensibility from the early mid 60s. So I don't know, I thought it was a little more like early 70s rock, but it's sort of a mix of a lot of sort of glam rock things. Young the Giant, American Bollywood. It's been a little while since we heard from these guys. Looks like a record sort of broken up into also 4 acts, kind of telling a story there, right? And it's an indie exclusive transparent yellow vinyl. They played a show in a venue that's no longer in this area, but maybe 2 blocks from here at one point when they were first starting out. So, and I went to that show. Okay, Grateful Dead, History of the Grateful Dead. This is a compilation done by the Bear's Choice people. This has been out on CD before. I don't know if I've seen it on vinyl, but features a full side each of Acoustic and Electric Dead. This was their the first archival release from the Bear's Choice series. These are kind of limited right now. I hope to get more of these soon. They're on order, but Warner sort of always kind of underestimates how much Grateful Dead people are going to want. So a couple of Overkill reissues, Years of Decay, and Horoscope. 2 sort of sought after metal releases from what sort of like late 80s, early 90s, I guess. Maybe they're both late 80s. 89 and 91. George Winston, solo piano. This album's called Night. It's kind of hard to see the cover. If you like super mellow piano, kind of new agey, I mean, George Winston is sort of the piano king of the new age genre. So I think he's from like Nebraska. Anyway, you might want to check that out if you just want some music to decompress. That's probably sort of what that's like. Steven Wilson continues with the reissue campaign of solo albums. This one's called Grace for Drowning. And 4 stars from Mojo Magazine. It was his second album, solo. An immersive, ambitious project that demands repeated spins. So says Mojo. So, Steven Wilson. I mean, what can I say about him that hasn't been said already? Medeski Martin Wood, Shackman. This is the debut on vinyl of their 1996 breakthrough record on black vinyl, pressed by Gotta Groove Records. I ordered a bunch of these. They only sent me a few, and they're also supposed to release Friday afternoon, and that one didn't show up at all yet. And none of the distributors had it, so I'm assuming that there's some kind of product shortage or delay with that. It was also like one of the few things that for Record Store Day that we'd ordered a certain amount of copies, and I think they cut us down to like maybe a third of what I ordered. So don't be completely distraught if you don't get that one right away, because I'm hoping that they put more into production soon. It just seems like they were trying to meet the deadline and maybe didn't get enough of them made. But Stone Roses, Sally Cinnamon. This is a song from the first album era, and they put it out on an indie exclusive red vinyl edition, DMM. Oh, you hear my phone. See, it shows that I'm live when I do this. I'm not an AI, all right? Yet. Someone's going to AI me. Please, don't do it. I don't want to take over the world. Well, yeah. I don't want to be like the source of a target of anything. Anyway, half speed mastering, direct metal mastering, yeah, red vinyl. 8 tracks, some live tracks on here. Oh my gosh, I don't know if any of you went to like I think Ultimate Classic Rock had a article about old Paul McCartney and John Lennon songs being sort of AI versions. And if you haven't heard those, you should probably listen to them and listen to the original to compare, especially the John Lennon. It's pretty shocking what they can do and sort of turn it into like a almost like the Beatles are still together and still young. It's very it's kind of unsettling. It might be enjoyable. I think as long as they let us know that they're the AI versions, that might be kind of cool, but it's also kind of like, what are we doing? You know. Oh, that's another topic entirely. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, music to kill bad people too. Great. Demos and Rarities, Volume 1. So this is on Purple Galaxy colored vinyl. These are songs recorded between 2011 and 2020. So not that old, all right. Oh, this is kind of like sort of heartwarming here. Olivia Newton-John, Just the Two of Us. This is the Duets Collection, Volume 1. And Olivia really, I don't know if she really had that many duets released during her life, but this features obviously Cliff Richard Suddenly from Xanadu, but other people on here. She does a version of Jolene with Dolly Parton. Then there are tracks with Michael McDonald, John Travolta, and not from Grease, something Take a Chance, Chloe Latanzi, her daughter, Paul Anka, Barry Gibb, Jim Brickman, David Foster, Vanessa Amorosi, John Cicada, Tina Arena, Richard Marx, Amy Sky and Beth Nielsen Chapman, Kelly Lang, Delta Goodrem, and Mariah Carey doing a Hopelessly Devoted to You live version. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, some of the artists are not what I would call like, Dolly's great, but I mean, some of those people are sort of more like either actors or people that were in her life or whatever. Beth Nielsen Chapman's great. But I sort of think it's sort of like, it's a very adult contemporary kind of record. You're not going to hear her doing duets with like Dave Grohl or Metallica or something like that, or Robert Smith. Train, Drops of Jupiter. This album has been out as regular issues, but this is a cool music on vinyl, limited to 2,000 on red and black vinyl. And yeah, it's a 3 times platinum record. Features obviously Drops of Jupiter, She's on Fire, Something More. This is kind of a big album, really. and catchy. And Train, I think they were sort of like hardworking band, and they're still making records. So, New Dawn, there's a New Dawn. This is some sort of '60s psych rock garage kind of record. I have not heard it, but it says it's sort of highly sought after. So this is actually done by Jackpot Records, a limited orange metallic pressing, and it sounded really interesting. So if you're into garage rock, you might want to look that up. And Studio One, Space Age. This is like a sort of dub special. These guys, Soul Jazz Records, had a bunch of records out for Record Store Day. I'm not sure why this one wasn't part of that series, but it wasn't. So it kind of came out separately. Let's see. There's a few CDs that I want to just sort of run by you guys. Wilder Woods, sort of a singer-songwriter, kind of Western guy, I guess. Olivia Jean. I think the vinyl is on the way for this. She is Jack White's wife currently, the one who he married on stage recently. I don't know if he had anything to do with this record other than its Third Man Records release. And let's see, there's Balin, which is a family, sister and two brothers. They're pretty good, singer-songwriter kind of stuff. Pop, but a little bit sort of a cut above. And Joe Lovano, his new release on ECM. This is called Our Daily Bread, and Trio Tapestry with Marilyn Crispell and Carmen Castaldi. And so that's tenor sax, piano, and drums, gong, and temple bells. So, and there's a few other sort of random. Last thing I wanted to do today was sort of give a recommends corner. I've been thinking about maybe starting doing sort of like, what do I recommend? And it's kind of hard because I want to pick stuff that people can have access to. And at the same time, I don't want to pick something that everybody is like, oh, we've all heard that. And this is probably one that you're all going to say, we've all heard that. But I thought, well, just to start, because I think I have to give her props. And I've talked about her before. And I've talked about this album before. I've even featured it. But Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. Congratulations to Kate for getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, after being nominated before, but I think she was nominated before, but not the kind of record or the kind of artist that necessarily always would get into something like that. And I know she seems pretty shocked herself. And look, her hit last summer with Running Up That Hill being sort of in the whole Stranger Things world really elevated her to another level again. I mean, I think that there's actually probably more anticipation for a new Kate Bush record at this point than there's been in a while. I don't know if she's making one. She certainly has no plans to tour or play live. She did that sort of thing almost a decade ago now, 7 years. She had a whole series of shows in England, and that was like 30, 40 years in the making. So anyway, so side one of Hounds of Love, if you're not familiar with this album, I really recommend you go listen to it, okay? Made in 1985, or that's when it was released, so we're talking, 38 years now. Starts with Running Up That Hill, which you will probably have heard at some point. The title track, Hounds of Love, great kind of upbeat, rhythmic song. The Big Sky, very rhythmic. Interestingly, they changed the version on the reissues to the 7-inch mix, and I think that had something to do with the fact that she prefers that mix. It if you're familiar with the original, it sort of starts right away with a pounding drum, and the version that's on the reissues is kind of more smoothed out without the drum, and it kind of comes in a few seconds later. Really, that's one of the few kind of differences of it that you'll really hear right away if you know the original. Mother Stands for Comfort. kind of the quirky song of side A. It's more probably reminiscent of her earlier music, but it's kind of a spare piano ballad. And Cloud Busting is sort of the orchestral, rousing kind of song at the end of that side. And yeah, it's very interesting the marrying of that song and the video. Go watch the video with Donald Sutherland. I mean, she plays a child in it, but it's very 80s and theatrical. And then side B, which is sort of set up as its own sort of concept album thing, The Ninth Wave. And it's such a variety of stuff. I'll never forget the first time I heard this when it was released, and how shocked I was when I got to Waking the Witch. I thought, what in the world is she doing? And, you know, we're talking about somebody who I expected odd things from because I'd heard some of her previous records, like The Dreaming was pretty darn odd. But And Dream of Sheep is quite beautiful. That's the first one. Under Ice is a little more mysterious and kind of dark, short track. And it's sort of, this whole thing is kind of about supposedly a woman who's sort of dreaming that she's drowning or something like that. And so Waking the Witch is not, I think that's sort of a loose description because it seems more like that's kind of like you've jumped in on some kind of Salem witch trial or something, with the kind of crowd noises and her voice being manipulated into this kind of almost demonic sound. It's a very, well, those of you who've heard it, I just go listen to it. Then Watching You Without Me is probably my favorite kind of little surprise track of that side, with little quirky sort of panning vocals and things like little strange cut up vocals, but it's got this little kind of ticking clock sort of theme through it. Jig of Life is more sort of like arousing, sort of very kind of stomping, Celtic-y kind of like, but in a minor key, and then with this really like different upbeat sort of Irish rousing kind of thing at the end. I'm using the word rousing a lot. Hello Earth, haunting the vocals of the male choir in the background and the weird stops and starts and sound elements of that. And then The Morning Fog is kind of like a, you know, you sort of kind of return home, and it's a very kind of lilting, beautiful piece. So anyway, my first recommends, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's probably one of my 10 favorite albums of all time, maybe 5 actually. So, and I love her other records too, but there's a reason that this is sort of number one for a lot of people. And it's maybe not easy on the first listen, especially the second side, but there's something about it that sort of keeps drawing you back and wanting to like hear it again and being like, what is going on here? And you know, also at the time, the use of the Fairlight synthesizer, I mean, she was, or sampling machine, she was one of the first people that really used it a lot, along with like Peter Gabriel. And obviously they did a lot of like guesting on each other's records, and were sort of even involved for a few minutes. But you know, I think that also kind of opened up her mind to what can be done, as far as like sound painting in a studio. And for somebody who was like, she loved being on stage as a dancer, I think she didn't really, you'd have to ask her, but she sort of, the scrutiny of like the audience judging your vocals and whatever as a live performer is tough for some people. And I just want to address, you know, that we are now in a culture where if you're an artist and you want to make a living, you have to get out there and tour. And as we saw during the pandemic, that's not always the easiest thing to do. But a lot of people are very reluctant to do that and would really just rather be sound painting type artists in a studio. And I cannot begrudge people who want to basically pursue their art. And that is a form of art. And some things are made strictly for pop consumption. Other things like that are made because the artist feels something from their soul and they want to communicate some sort of sonic idea. And it might take more money or more ingenuity. And yeah, you can do things cheaper now, probably, if you do them on your own. But that doesn't always mean that you get the best results. And these records, they took like a sort of a team of collaborators to make them sound a certain way. And so I hate to say that maybe we've lost a little bit of that. I think there's still a lot of great music out there being made that way. You just have to search for it more, really is the thing. But I don't know where I'm sort of going with this, but I do want to just basically say, like, you know, we need to pay the artists what they're worth and what their music is worth to us, because otherwise we're kind of headed into a direction where AI is just going to do it all for us. And I don't know if that's really the solution. All right. That being said, go check out Kate Bush if you have not. Congratulations on your Hall of Fame award. And I guess we'll be seeing her probably at the ceremony. I mean, I can't imagine why she wouldn't actually show up for that. So, that being said, next couple of weeks, sort of not huge on the new release front. There's a lot of reissues next week. May 12th, we'll have the Miles Davis Workin' that comes out on OJC. That's a new series of reissues on jazz that the Concord label's doing. Daft Punk's reissue of Random Access Memories as a double with some extra unreleased tracks. We'll have a couple of jazz releases from Archie Shepp and Dorothy Ashby. Those are on the Verve Acoustic Sounds series. I know that Dorothy Ashby is really hard to get good versions of. And Alison Goldfrapp's solo debut, which has a sort of, so far, a dancier sound than what we usually get from her when Will Gregory's involved. But I love her voice. May 19th, speaking of somebody who was influenced by Kate Bush, May 19th, SZA, SOS finally comes out on vinyl. Dave Matthews Band, Paul Simon, Graham Nash, Kesha, those are all new, plus EP from Ghost, Khruangbin live record, and Def Leppard orchestrated record. On the 26th, Sparks have their new release, The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte. Arlo Parks, there's a reissue of Steely Dan's Countdown to Ecstasy. A Monk and Coltrane and a Getson Bird. Those are both Verve Acoustic Sounds reissues also. And new release from Matchbox 20 and Stone Temple Pilots Purple. If you don't have that, that is being reissued. I think maybe clear vinyl. I'm not sure. That's a part of that Atlantic Records 75th anniversary that they've been doing with the special pressings of classics. And early June, first week of June, new release from the Foo Fighters, Roger Waters, and Bob Dylan, a live record that he was doing during lockdown or during the COVID years. So anyway, all right, guys, thank you very much for joining me. So I ran a little over half an hour. But I hope that my comments stir up some comments from you, and hopefully you don't think I'm way off base. I'm just basically relating what my feelings are, and it's all personal from me, mostly. So mainly, I take credit for everything. But yeah, so I just want you to kind of like realize that when you're, watching this, and that's my disclaimer. I'm sticking to it. All right, thanks again. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week for another edition of New Release Mania, and enjoy those RSD records. There were really some great things in there. I've played a couple of things already, and I was very happy with what I heard. So, all right. Take care. Peace.